when I had my awakening, I realized that, although it wasn't as extreme as my brother was dealing with, that I was following a very similar path. And I
Mhm.
was giving the same messages to my nephew that my brother had given to me when I was his age. Partying's great. It's cool. Go try drugs. Fuck it. Everyone's doing coke. Like, that's something I actually said to my 18-year-old nephew. Like,
Oof.
everyone's doing coke. You should just try it. What the
That
hell?
no. Hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And I've got some questions for you, but really just one real quick. What if one psychedelic experience could change your life and redirect it for good? Well, that's exactly what happened to John Borden. He too was once trapped in substance abuse, but also caught in gambling, escapism in general, and found himself through Psilocybin, wrote a book about it, and now actually races ultra marathons and coaches others to reimagine their own potential. So, John, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing awesome, Keegan. Like I said when we first introduced ourselves, a little bit tired today. I am training for a 100-mile ultra marathon today, so woke
Woo!
up at 4:30 this morning to hit the road before my first client of the day came by, and so it's been a long day. But when you're chasing your passions and you're doing stuff that really matters to you, sleep is a secondary thought.
Yeah, I know that feel all too well. Sometimes I've gone by that phrase that sleep is for the weak, and I've come to find out that that's not necessarily the best thing for me either, though.
Most definitely. Yeah, my wife struggles with it big time. I'm always talking to her about the importance of getting it in. And, ever since I started this training, I get a little bit of the taste of what living like her is like, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. But, it's all good when you're doing something you love.
Yeah, that is for sure. Whenever you are passionate about something, it means that you're willing to suffer a little bit for it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. The Buddha said life is suffering. And it's so true. It's just a matter of finding what things are worth suffering for. If you're suffering because you're at a job you hate, that's a different form of suffering than suffering because you want to go out and do something incredible.
That's a really good way to put that. And it's always a good reminder that sometimes suffering is just inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. It's just a matter of choosing your suffering.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about John? Where are you from? What's your background like? And how did you start running ultra marathons? Because I know I've spoke to people that have run like marathons, but not an ultra marathon. That's beyond me, my pay grade,
Yeah, well, so John, I'm 32. I live in sunny, beautiful St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a little slice of heaven, right next to Tampa, that people are a lot more familiar with. Right near the beach, right near downtown. There's so much to do. It's such an incredible place. But I grew up in New Jersey. I spent a year in Connecticut before absolutely reaching my rock bottom and moving to Tampa, half out of desperation, half out of knowing that it was supposed to be a cool place and just seeing what would happen if I moved. And so it was kind of a throw at the dartboard. And I moved down in the middle of my deepest struggles with addiction and identity and loss of purpose and everything like that. And 6 months after I moved down, I had that experience that I wrote my book about, and my life has just been in a completely different direction since then. It was about a year after I had my experience with psilocybin that I started to get into running. I hadn't run in 12 years, from the time I was 19 to the 18, just turned 19, to the time I was just about 30. So, it was a really long time between the times that I put my running shoes on. But I did a half marathon Spartan race right after. I decided to sign up for that, and then was like, I better start running. And so I gave myself 2 weeks to prepare for that. Did an awesome job at it, and I was like, wow, I am so much stronger, so much more capable than I've been giving myself credit for my whole life. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. And so, 5 months after that, I did my first triathlon. I did a few more Spartan races. I did a couple strongman competitions this year. Actually won an award at one of them, which was pretty awesome. I was the latest competitor in the field, and put up a fight. So they love that. And then I did my first ultra marathon 9 months after I started running. I was a 46-mile ultra on one of the hottest days of the year. It was 90 degrees with 90% humidity.
Eesh.
And, I hadn't run anywhere near that distance before. I hadn't done a marathon before doing that. The longest I'd done is, a 13-mile half marathon.
Oh no.
But you show up on race day and you put one foot in front of the other until you reach the end. And, I finished an hour and a half before the cutoff time and felt really proud of that. And so,
Wow.
I did it again this year. And like I said, I'm training for a 100-miler right now. So we're just trying to keep pushing the envelope and see how far we can take this.
Oh man, that is exciting. And might I say, congratulations on all that, because that is quite an endeavor and it is a huge milestone at that too, right? Because some people can only imagine or hope to run something like that. And at the same time, some people think that they could never do it themselves, kind of like you probably did, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I have mental conversations with myself from 3 years ago all the time.
Mm,
And I just say, what would that dude believe that this dude is doing right now? There's no way he'd believe that he's about to run 100 miles. Are you kidding me?
mm-hmm.
But, life takes you in a crazy direction. And if you decide that you want something for yourself, it's just a matter of creating a really strong vision for the life that you want to create and working like hell to make that happen. And so, that's been
Mm-hmm.
the path that I've been following, and it's been my North Star ever since that experience back 3 years ago. And, it's
Mm.
led me down such an incredible path.
Heck yeah, man. That is awesome. And you said something right there about following your North Star, and it sounds like you found that after your experience with magic mushrooms. Is that correct?
Yeah, big time, big time. Prior to that experience, I was just wasting my life. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing the things that a lot of, kids in their 20s do, drinking, doing cocaine, chasing girls. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I cared about.
Yeah.
And, if you ask me, what do you want to do with your life? I just want to have fun. I want to help other people have fun. I want to have a great time myself. I want to go out on a party. I want to see shows. I want to yada, yada, yada. I have this experience with mushrooms, and it's like, dude, you have a life to live. Come on, like potential, harness it, go towards things that actually matter. And I had about a month experience that I wrote the book centering
Mm-hmm.
around, and there were
Mm-hmm.
6 experiences with magic mushrooms in that time. Ramped up from a half gram to a gram to 2 grams, and then
Mm-hmm.
did like 1.5, 3 straight days at EDC
Ooh.
music festival. Yeah, uh, but it's not the drugs, right? It's not the
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms. It's not the
Yeah.
substance. It's what you learn about yourself through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of those processes, I just uncovered so much trauma, so much stuff I had locked away for years and years and years that
Mm-hmm.
were severely clouding my judgment, limiting my potential, and not allowing me to see what was right in front of me and the truth to how beautiful life is if you let it be beautiful and stop looking for the bad in everything. And on my last day at EDC, I had a connection with, God, the universe, the creator, whatever name you want to give. And
Mm-hmm.
I was told, hey, you're good, right? You're strong, you're capable, you're, a friendly person, you make great connections. You have the world at your fingertips. Now go do something that impacts other people. Go make other people's lives better. And so I
Oh.
received that message, and it's like, how? I'm, at the time I was selling websites to real estate agents. I don't have really anything going on in my life that's like
Mm-hmm.
positive or structured.
Yeah.
And the first answer was, okay, well, I'm a slightly talented writer, or at least I thought that I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had a paper in college that one of my professors turned into a scholarly article.
Oh.
Um, yeah. Well, he was going to turn it into a scholarly article until I let one of my friends cheat off me on a take-home test, and he failed both of us and stripped that away. So thank you.
Sorry.
Uh, yeah, slight stipulation. Yeah, so that I'd gotten A's on papers in college
Uh,
regularly and stuff like that. So I felt confident in my writing, and I
yeah,
and I
yeah.
felt that I had a story that was worth telling, and a way of connecting with people. And so uh, it became something where I just gave up so many nights out, days hanging with friends, days instead of, watching football or whatever, that I'd just sit in front of the computer and write and write and
Mm,
write and write. And that
mm,
lasted for a year and a half, from when I started writing the book to the time I got it published. And, within that time, a lot of soul searching happened, and a lot of things that ended up being included in the book happened. And
mm,
so, as the reader is going through the story, they're kind of living this experience with me. They're going through all of the mental unravelings I went through, and how I went from wasting my life to using my life constructively, and can see the process unfolding, and like, that this isn't just, oh my God, you have a realization and your life's better forever. There's an intense amount of work and reflection and everything like that needs to go into the process. And I found my love for fitness on a much deeper level a year after that experience when I did that first Spartan race. And so, it's been something just really powerful that I, had that calling to help people, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that, and I think I'm starting to make some waves.
Oh man, that is really freaking awesome. And I gotta say that I think that you're making some waves, because not only are you sitting here podcasting about it, you are sitting there, you wrote it out. And in doing so, you were able to take that deep look into the abyss, if you will, and take a look into that mirror, and ultimately change your life and change your perspective, which in turn is going to impact every single person you run into afterwards.
Yeah, you said it, man. Just the level of connections that I have with the people in my life right now, versus the way they were before, it's insane. I met my wife on September 7th of last year, and she's my wife now. So we've built an
Yay.
incredible life together in a very short time frame. I have an incredible group of people here in St. Pete that are very supportive of me and me of them, and we've created an incredible community here. And one thing that immediately came to mind when you started talking was my relationship with my nephew. And my nephew is 12 years younger than me, which is the same age difference that my brother and I had have.
Uh-huh.
And my brother was an addict, more vicious addictions than I dealt with. His were to crystal meth, heroin, opioids, stuff like that. And he'd gone to rehab a couple times. You could really see it. He was just a person that was not living a life that was valuable to anyone. I at least still had a job, and was able to take care of myself. He was in a much different place, and the cartel tried to kill him. He got left for dead on the side of a road after they tried to kill him. And spent 2 months rehabbing himself, and then got addicted to painkillers, heroin. Anyway, when I had my awakening, I realized that, although it wasn't as extreme as my brother was dealing with, that I was following a very similar path, and I was giving the same messages to my nephew that my brother had given to me when I was his age. Partying's great. It's cool. Go try drugs. Fuck it. Everyone's doing coke. Like, that's something I actually said to my 18-year-old nephew. Like, everyone's doing coke. You should just try it. What the hell?
No.
Yeah. And, when I had my awakening, immediately it was like, oh my God, I'm wrecking this kid. And so, I would call him and talk to him, and it's a different message than I've given him my whole life. Stay away from this stuff. The faster that you can get away from alcohol and everything else that's associated with it, the better your life's going to be. Find purpose. Like, look for one woman, don't try to chase and look for, validation from all these different chicks. Like, that's not what it is. And it took a while for it to click for him. But after I did my second Spartan race, which was in February of 2024, I was driving home from that. I stopped for lunch, and I got a text from him that just said, "Hey, Johnny, that Spartan race is badass. I'm so proud of you, seeing where you were a year ago to now." And, in that moment, I recognized that his habits had started to change as mine had started to change. And just 2 weeks ago, he visited me in St. Pete, and he did a 5K with me. And yeah, he did really proud by himself. He finished 2 minutes faster than he was hoping he would. And, it was the first time that he's gone out and done something like that. So I'm just so proud of him for that, for coming down for a week with his girlfriend he's been dating for a year, and neither of them having a single drink the whole time they're down here. And it's just incredible seeing how my transformation helps to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen to what is literally the most important person in my life.
Yeah. Oh man. First of all, my condolences to your elder brother. That really is painful to watch, especially whenever you tried everything you can do and then you can only watch from the sidelines, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, honestly, he's an inspiration now. because he
Ooh.
came back from that. He's a business owner. He's sober. He's taking care of his family, and he's a quality person. And it's a really, really beautiful thing to be able to say that your brother, who I didn't think highly of for my whole life until I had my experience with mushrooms, and I saw, wait, Ryan had changed. Ryan's not this terrible person you think he is anymore.
Mm.
And that opened my eyes to see that he's actually a good person. And it's beautiful to see the inspiration that he's become. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man.
Oh man, that is way too cool. Way
Hmm.
too cool. It sounds like you and him are generational curse breakers in a sense, right? I'm sure that y'all didn't necessarily just get like 18 years old and were like, oh yeah, I think I'll go ahead and mess around with booze all the time now, right? It was probably something that y'all were exposed to, or maybe something that maybe runs in the family, like myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Both of our dads, me and my brother have different dads. Both of our dads
Mm.
were heavy drinkers.
Oof.
His dad was in a motorcycle gang. Mine was just a straight alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just always around the house. My mom was like, not an alcoholic by any means, but a glass of
Mm-hmm.
wine a day, which kind of like normalized alcohol, made it seem like just a normal part of everyday life. And so that kind of gets built into your framework of how you see the world and how you operate.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him giving me a Mike's Hard Lemonade when I was probably like 8 years old, trying a sip, not drinking the
Uh-huh.
whole thing, but trying it. And being curious about alcohol
Mm-hmm.
from the time that I knew what it was, really.
Yeah.
And so when you have that first experience and it hits your lips and you feel what that feels like, you're like, oh shit, okay, let's
Yeah.
party, baby.
Yep. Yep. And you're kind of like, oh yeah, I like that feeling a lot. And if you're like me, you maybe had some traumas underneath everything that it just kind of hit this sweet spot on them. It felt like that weighted blanket, and it was like, oh yeah, that hits the spot. I'm going to keep doing that again because that solves my problems. But it became a problem in its own right
Yeah.
eventually.
What was your problem that was helping it mask?
Uh, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things, right? Like I don't think that there was necessarily a root to any one thing, but one of those is definitely deep parental wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up terrified of my father.
Mm.
My mother always used to say to my sisters and stuff like, y'all respect your father, but you don't respect me. And I was like, you're confusing fear with respect.
Yeah, right. The whole Michael Scott thing. Would you rather be
Yeah.
feared or respected, or feared or loved? Right.
And so for me, it was a lot of that. And I always didn't have any self belief and self worth because whenever I was young, my parents would get into fights, and sometimes they were about me and they thought I couldn't hear them. And it was one of those things. So it was like, it's just better if I didn't exist, kind of thing. And so I grew up without a plan. I grew up without that yearning for that substance, And so
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd get to 18. Then I hit 18 and I was like, all right, well, here we go. And so never thought I'd make it to 20. And then I made it 20. Then I made it to 25 and I was like, shit. And then I almost died and pretty much died. And then now here I am at 30, now 33. And it's like, fuck. All right, here we go. I actually have to have something in place now, right? Like I'm here. Like shit.
Exactly. That the whole join the 27 club thing didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
What are we
Yeah.
gonna do?
Yeah. And it's been one hell of a journey myself, and I know what those ups and downs are like, and I know that if I had the same experience with magic mushrooms that you had before, then I may have been able to shift my perspective a little bit different, but that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing too, is that not everyone has that circumstance or has a situation or has that trip that really just it clicks everything, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's a huge thing, and that's a big point that I emphasize in my book is that, if more people had the experience that I have rather
Mm-hmm.
than the experience that my brother had, right? Both of us reached sobriety somehow, right?
Yeah.
But how you get there is very different. And, if more people had the ability to have the experience that I had, with somebody who can help guide them through the experience or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, just the life experience to be able to shape those thoughts and unleash those things that had limited you for so long,
Mm-hmm.
how much better would the world potentially be? Because, I wasn't a good person then, you know. I mean, I always had a good heart, but I wasn't a good person. And you know, you just hope that there is more potential for people to take a chance that something like that could make a positive impact for them.
Yeah.
And I feel so fulfilled knowing that we're at a point in history in the US now where they are becoming somewhat mainstream. There's a
Mhm.
there's a cannabis and psychedelics convention that I'm actually going to be speaking at for the third time. That's
Oh,
the night that I finished the 100 miler. So I'm running 100 miles essentially to go and speak at this conference.
hell yeah.
So that's going to be wild. But there's just a cannabis and psychedelics conference that's been going on in St. Pete for the last 3 years, and
Huh.
nobody bats an eye. And it's an
Wow.
amazing thing to know that we're at that level of acceptance with it, where people are realizing that there's an incredible amount of positive to be gained from these things, and they're no longer those scary magic mushrooms that you see the Saturday afternoon specials about, and people think you're losing your mind. No, I'm finding my mind.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's one of those hard things, though, is to really get across to other people that haven't had this kind of experience, either firsthand, secondhand, or thirdhand, and let them know that it's not what you think. Like,
hmm
how do you get someone to that point of saying, look, like, either just give it a shot or be open to the idea of, like, even if it's their loved one that is sitting there telling them they shouldn't do it because they think it's so bad, but at the same time, we have to face those demons, and sometimes in a way, well, I use demons loosely. We have to face those demons, we have to face those shadows. So how would you just get someone open to the idea of trying magic mushrooms to just open their perspective, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing is I encourage people to read my book,
Hmm.
because my my book is a no holds barred account of reaching rock bottom, searching for something to drag me out of the hell that I was living in,
Hmm.
and then having this experience that just made everything that I went through not only make sense, but it made it all okay. And
Hmm.
it made it so that I didn't worry about the things that I'd gone through earlier in life, because it didn't matter, because they had already happened, right? So I can't change it. I'm here, right? And I wasn't worried about the future because I knew that, hey, I made it here despite being this terrible version of myself.
Hmm.
What can happen if I live my life with intention moving forward and
Yeah.
actually go towards things? And so, there wasn't this depression about what the future is going to look like, because
Hmm.
all of a sudden the future doesn't seem like the worst possible case scenario. It's
Hmm.
that question of what if it works out, not, oh my god, I hope this works out. It's, hmm, what happens, right? Let's go try.
Yeah. Essentially looking towards the fear as more of an excitement kind of thing.
Exactly. When we all deal with anxiety, right? Whether you're
Hmm.
diagnosed with anxiety or not, we all deal with a level of anxiety. And
Yeah.
that wasn't something that I realized until I had my experience with psilocybin, is that
Oh,
the anxiety that I was feeling was a normal part of everyday life. It's a normal reaction to when stressors come up. But it's just about how you think about the things that are causing that anxiety. And
mm,
if you can control the thing that's causing anxiety, control it. If not, then
let it
don't
go.
worry about it, or whatever,
Hmm.
right? But you can't just sit there ruminating on stuff that isn't going to be productive for you, no matter how much you think about it. So
Yeah.
once I realized what that anxiety was, it was like, okay, now I can control my environment, I can control my situations, and I
Hmm.
control how my thoughts are going to progress from the point of input to where I need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, you do help people through this kind of thing, like one-on-one, right?
Correct. Yep.
And they can find you where at?
Best place is to reach out to me on Instagram at Johnny
Okay.
B, JohnNniebe.
Okay.
There's also my website, getpsychedfitness.com, which talks, it's mostly about the personal training side of the business. But there's
Okay.
also some blogs and stuff I wrote like that about integration coaching and how my
Hmm.
experience shaped me. So I encourage people to reach out to me if they got any more questions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. But that is one of the things, is that whenever we're looking at our experiences, it's easy for us to kind of tell ourselves, like, man, I wish I had done that sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But was there any telling you this kind of thing sooner, because I know for me, I was told basically everything that could have been said to me by those around me that loved me, like, hey, you need to stop. You're destroying yourself. You're destroying your life. You're destroying your future. You're destroying your potential. You're destroying your reputation. You're destroying everything.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. There is no future. There's no this. Like, fuck it. Those are the two most dangerous words in my vocabulary is fuck it. If I say that, then it means that all like rules are out the window, nothing is spared, and it's just all hell breaks loose, But I know that even if I were to take myself 4 years sober and go back in the past in the middle of my shit or near the end, wherever, I could tell myself anything and everything, and it still wouldn't mean anything, right? The only thing I could ever really focus, well, not focus, but the only thing I could figure out to tell myself would be that I'm sorry that I'm about to have to go through this, and that may make me go like, yeah, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not, because that sounds like that's going to suck. But
what was your big aha moment, your big transformational experience?
my near-death experience, really. So whenever I went to get my detox from alcohol, I wound up having delirium tremens and seizing, and I woke up in the hospital 4 days later, but I had an out-of-body experience, met my higher powers and stuff, and then wound up in a rehab 6.5 hours away from home for 9 months. So, yeah. But like waking up in the hospital after that was mind-blowing, because I was like, holy shit, what have I been doing with the last 10 years of my life?
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that there's a lot that science tells us about the way that psilocybin works in the brain, but there's a lot that it doesn't tell us, and it connects us with the spiritual world in a really incredible way. And the experience that I had is probably somewhat similar to the one that you had when you were in your coma or whatever it was, right? Is that there's this experience that you can't really put into words adequately enough for people to really understand it, but the type of impact that it had on you, and it's something that will forever stay with you.
Yep.
One of the questions that you had, and kind of where you're leading, is like, in that time, like you said exactly right, the me now could go back to that me and look me directly in the eye and say, hey, this is what you need to do, and be like, fuck off, you loser.
Yeah.
My mom said to me a number of times, and here's the thing, right, is that my alcohol, my drinking, was to mask a version of myself that I didn't like. And I didn't like that I was the smart kid in class. I was the kid who always got the highest grades, right? Because I had a reputation as like nerdy, but I was also an athlete. I was a baseball player. I wanted to be an athlete, and so like I got to high school, and my first day of high school, I pretended I couldn't read.
Whoa.
Yeah. I got a scholarship to go to a prestigious high school in South Jersey, and I pretended I couldn't read on the first day of school.
Wow.
And, like, what the fuck is going on up here that like a kid pretends that he can't read in front of a whole other, class of, somewhat gifted students. So like there was a version of myself that I just hated so much that I didn't want it to show. And when I was drinking, a more sociable, a more, lighthearted version of myself came out, and not, the version that had really always existed. And so, the drinking was to mask that insecurity and that like extreme lack of self-confidence that I just always had in my life. And my mom said to me a number of times, she would say something like this: John, whatever this is needs to go away. I know my little boy, and it is not whatever this is, so cut it out and give me my son back. And be like, Mom, get out of here. I'm living my life. I've got this covered. Nope. Ouch. She was right. She was very right.
Oh, man. That's painful. And I think that would have been one of the good ways that I could have been maybe told that, but at the same time, that would have hurt me in such a way that it was like, all right, I know how to fix this wound. I'm just going to go drink some more.
Yeah. Exactly. What do you mean? people love me. I go out to bars. I give Coke to everybody. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
loves me.
Like, I'm not causing any problems, and I mean, everything's fine. Bank account's all right. Like, everything's fine.
Yeah, I
You
might be
know,
drunk driving multiple times a week, but I haven't killed anyone yet.
yeah. Oh, man. And that's always the scary thing, right? Is being able to sit there and say that and be like, yeah, I'm just really lucky that after like 10 years, there wasn't anything that anyone got hurt for, like, holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Oh, but
exactly, man. That's such like when I went through that experience that I had, it just hit me like a brick. Like, holy shit. I
mhm,
put myself in harm's way so much. I put other people in harm's way so much. I was such a bad influence to so many people. I hurt so many people with my actions that
mhm,
it just shocks you to the point of like, I could never live like that again. I could never do
mhm,
that. Like, you gain a completely different understanding of the impact that you have on the world,
yeah,
and how even just a little action can completely change the course of your life or someone else's life.
mhm.
And it's never worth it. It's never worth it to take that risk.
Yeah. And you just said something that I'm trying to grasp real quick because it was something that you said also at the beginning, and it had to deal with our perspective of everything, right? I had it in my head and then I started talking and then it went away. You had said early on in this episode that you had a good heart, but you weren't necessarily a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I kind of wanted to ask a little bit more on because a lot of people think that addiction is a moral kind of flaw or something. But at the same time, like, I'm sorry I didn't choose addiction, even though I kind of chose it by getting into the substances in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, it's a paradox. For me, addiction is a disease, but it is a disease of choice because I started with the choice to use or drink or whatever, and then I had the choice again and again and again until I did not.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes another choice to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, is that had I known that I was going to hurt so many people, potentially do worse damage than I did, and anything like that, I think that that may have been able to make me sit there and have second thoughts, because I like to think that I'm a good person, but a good person doesn't go and do that shit that I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you kind of like reconcile that with yourself?
Yeah. Well, it was really a thing where I had contemplated all the people that I'd hurt before in my life, and given enough time alone, whether that was, in my apartment tripping on the first time that I actually had a trip, which was just like, phew, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Or the times at EDC when, I was with a group of like 15 people and I left them on day 2 and 3 to just go off my own and just, see what the festival would be like, living
Hmm.
on my own. And being alone in the crowd gave me so much free time to just explore my thoughts and see the way I operated, interacting with strangers all around me.
Hmm.
Um, and I had a moment where I was on the final day and I looked at all of the changes that I had gone through. And I
Hmm.
said, not a single thing in my life has changed except the way that I look at the world. I'm no longer self-centered and only looking at the way that other people can help me. I'm looking for ways to positively impact other people, whether that's just giving them a compliment or like there was this, Indian woman that was sitting alone at a picnic table at EDC and I went and sat with her and chatted for, maybe 10 minutes while I ate. And I
Oh.
turned her from, kind of somber, low energy to just like a beaming smile on her face. And I'm like, yes, I positively impacted that person in such a great way. And it had nothing to do with anything that happened to me, anything that I did. I was just choosing to see that I saw a person that looked a little bit out of place, right? She was wearing a traditional sari dress, you
Hmm.
know, it just didn't look high energy, didn't look like she was enjoying herself. And I went and showed her that she belonged in this place where everybody is just there to enjoy life, enjoy music, and come together
Mm.
and be positive for 3 days. And so I was able to just completely shift her perspective on the way that her weekend was going and the experience that she was having there just by sharing a couple nice thoughts and a smile and good conversation. And, I had that realization of like, oh my God, nothing in my life has changed, but everything in my life has changed. Because the way that I saw all these horrible things that I did, they're no longer all these horrible things that I can't think about out of shame. It's now something
Mm,
that I did. I understand that it was out of insecurity. It was out of, terrible values, valuing you know, sexual interactions above all else, and using
mhm,
alcohol and cocaine as a way to get that.
mhm,
And I realized that if I just shift my values and say, no, my value is to be a positive influence to other people, then everything else will follow, right? All
mm,
that other validation that I've been looking for comes from not caring about myself, but caring about how I can positively impact other people and make their day, their lives, their existence just a little bit better. And
mm.
so, I started focusing on that rather than what others can do for me. And, it's made such an impactful difference.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love hearing that kind of story because whenever we get to see that light and fire be lit up with other people, it's like, oh yeah, that's it. Whatever I just did, that is what I want to do again, you know?
Hmm.
And we don't really get a chance to do that too often in life. So, real quick, because I know that recovery and digging into the roots of it and everything, and not only that, but figuring out all the different nuances, the different facets of living that we've come to either find, discover, because other people help lead us towards it, or just whatever it is. Recovery is an interesting road, and I would love to have you back on the show for around 2, 3, who knows how many more, if you'd be willing to
Yeah,
hop on
most
board.
definitely, man.
Sweet. Because again, this is one of those conversations that is just amazing because we get to see life from different viewpoints. So my question is really, did you sit there and like just go like, ah, this sounds like a fun weekend thing. I'm going to do this, or was it more like I'm tired of where I'm at. I want to do something to change
Yeah,
it.
well, so it was really a combination of the two. When I left college, I'd been president of my fraternity. I had had internships with like sports teams and stuff like that, and kind of thought I wanted to go
Mm,
down the sports route, but didn't like the long hours. So I ended up working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car out of school, which for me as a
mm,
highly competitive person, especially at that point in my life, was like, okay, this is perfect, right? Because they rank you against your
mm,
coworkers on a monthly basis and get awards for performance and yada yada yada. And I was awarded like
uh,
every single month in my 3.5 years there, until
wow.
I was a branch manager. I was the highest ranked branch manager for like a year and a half straight. My office got broken into and robbed. And I got fired because I didn't lock the keys in the safe at the end of the night, and I didn't take responsibility for my role in the robbery. And so, when that happened, I'm like, okay, I no longer have this job that was my identity. It was 60 hours a week that I was putting towards the job. Uh, yeah,
Oof.
it was crazy. Um,
Yeah.
and so a huge loss of identity, a huge loss of time.
Mm,
And so pretty much everything became drinking and doing coke, and that
yeah.
lasted until I found a new job. I got a new job at the beginning of 2019, and that lasted up until COVID hit.
Mm,
Got work from home. I was like, this is a bad sign. 3 months in, I got laid off, and now it's like, okay, I have nothing to do except drink and do coke and try to find someone to sleep with off Tinder. And so that was
mm,
my life, for months and months and months. And then
mm-hmm,
I thought I was buying MDMA. The guy sold me ketamine
mm-hmm.
instead. Uh, yeah,
Oof.
and I wasn't familiar with ketamine. I heard that it was a
You got K hold out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah, yeah. And I had ran out of coke that night, and I was like, well, fuck it,
Oh
I
no.
have this. Let's try it. And so I went into a fucking hell of a K-hole. And I couldn't tell you
Oh.
what I saw on it, but I came out of it recognizing that I had a huge problem with addiction. And
Ooh.
the biggest problem was that I couldn't fall asleep. And so, a
Mhm.
friend was like, "Oh yeah, I use weed to help me sleep when I needed to have a drink in my system to fall asleep," and that was that way for
Mhm.
years. Um,
Yep.
and so I started smoking pot before bed, and so that helped me cut down on the drinking a little bit. But
Mhm.
then once I moved to Connecticut for a job up there, and I didn't have any friends, it just turned into benders every fucking weekend. and
Mm.
usually during the week too. I had a complete breakdown moment where I recognized that I wasn't on the right path in my life and that I needed a major change. And, in my mind, the job was the first thing. So I started looking for a job in Connecticut. It was close to, getting a sales job with a pretty prominent company. And felt good about my
Mm.
chances after the final interview. And I went out to eat dinner. And it was the first time I was able to actually sit down and eat dinner at a restaurant in like 3 months because I was just worked to the bone at this job that I was doing. And I sat next to this guy who
Mm.
says, we talk and, we had similar backgrounds. We both played baseball at a high level. We were both very successful in our careers. We were both presidents of our fraternities in college. And he tells me the truth that nobody else had told me. And he's like, everything that you're bitching to me about is your fault, right? Your girlfriend breaking up with you, you losing the job, you living up here in Connecticut and not being able to meet people. These are all things that you chose for yourself, but you're not taking
Mm.
responsibility, and nothing's going to change for you until you take responsibility. And,
Mm.
that shook me on a few different levels, but not in the way that you might think with that conversation. It was more so just like, fuck this guy. I'm going to show him. I'm going to like better myself. I'm going to get more girls than him, like, yada, yada, yada.
Oh.
And so it became like
Uh-huh.
a prove it thing. Shortly
Mhm.
after that, I decided, Connecticut isn't the right place for me and I can control that. So let's find somewhere different to live. I moved down to Tampa.
Mhm.
And, I'd had this realization that I had an alcohol and cocaine problem, but now we're 2 years removed from that realization on the ketamine K-hole,
Uh-huh.
and there's no signs of stopping. I'm going through an ounce of coke every 2 months, basically. It's like an 8 ball a week.
Oof.
Spending, I, it was like an average of $500 a weekend that I was spending at bars and on Ubers and food and whatever, and it's like, how
Man.
could I possibly live that kind of lifestyle? And
Mhm.
I had bought the mushrooms in preparation for EDC. I had tried them once when I was
Mhm.
18. I had a bad trip. It was the day after I quit playing baseball. So I went and told my
Oof.
coach that I was quitting on a Thursday. And then on Friday, I did mushrooms with my girlfriend and her friends. And I saw a childhood version of myself, like crying in the mirror, asking me why I quit baseball. And it was just this incredible ego death that I
Mm.
didn't feel comfortable doing mushrooms again. But I had
Mhm.
heard a number of positive things. I'd watched some documentaries. I heard Joe Rogan talk about it, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should give it another shot. And I couldn't find
Mhm.
acid for EDC. So,
Mm.
mushrooms, okay, whatever, we'll try them. And so I started off with a half
Yeah.
gram dose. And man, from that point forward, it was like everything that I had told myself that I wanted to do. I wanted to stop drinking. I didn't like it, but it just felt like such a necessary part of the way that I operated. It was my identity, right? I was just someone that partied. I was the guy
Mhm.
that got the party started. I was the guy that gave coke to my friends and was always just, kind of like the, hey, what are we doing tonight? Like, let's go out, let's go, whatever,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
from that moment forward of when I tried it, it was like all of those things that I had told myself that I wanted to make a change on for the longest time, I actually was able to, and really see the truth of why I wasn't able to in the past. And so, yeah,
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little happy accident.
Oh man, that is. I mean, I've heard of some pretty interesting stories, but I haven't heard of someone accidentally getting K-holed and then end up actually that was the starting point of their recovery journey, you know? And I love that though, because I actually spoke to someone recently, I believe it was Dr. Theodore Henderson. I'm terrible with names, so I really hope that that was correct. But he was talking about doing ketamine therapy, but he was also doing infrared lasers, like in the
Mm,
brain, kind of thing. It's pretty cool stuff.
interesting.
But he was talking about how ketamine actually will sit there and help the brain regrow and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. So it sounds like some of those neurons and synapses got like reconnected for you. And it was like, oh, hey, the light's kind of back on
Yeah.
in a sense, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a major aspect of the way that psilocybin operates in the brain too. It's highly
Hmm.
neuroprotective and neuroregenerative. It helps new synapses form and connections in parts of the brain that have never talked to each other to be able to connect and
Hmm.
see things in a totally different light than you've ever seen them before.
Yeah. And I think that I know for myself, I would personally love to do some magic mushrooms actually in like
Hmm.
recovering, because that's the thing is that whenever I did it in the past, I was sitting there looking at it as a form of escape from my problems. Like alcohol and anything else was like a step away from, I'm stepping out of myself, like I'm stepping away from the
Mm-hmm.
situation and sorts. But psychedelics were like, I'm taking a vacation from the problems, you
Yeah.
know? And so, but that was the thing, is that my mindset was, I'm taking a vacation from my problems. It wasn't, let me take a look on the inside to see where I need to change to make that change on the outside that I'm actually wanting. Because as I've come to find out, it's only after I change the inside that the outside will start to change
Mm-hmm.
too, you know?
Yeah, and that's exactly it, you know. Um, Nothing changes for ourselves until we change the way that we fundamentally look at the world. And that's what psilocybin
Yeah.
helped me do, is it helped me fundamentally look at the way that I approached life, the way that I saw the world around me, and chose
Mm-hmm.
actively to see it differently than I'd chosen to
Mm-hmm.
see it at any other point in my life. You know, I was just in
Yeah.
competition with everybody, anything. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be the best at everything that I did, and I didn't care who was hurt at my expense, at me getting what I wanted to get. And that's a really shitty way to live life. And, you know, I'm just so glad that I realized it when I did, how I did, because now I get to share this experience with people and talk about the insane positives that can come from these
Mm-hmm.
type of experiences, and be a beacon for other people who are maybe looking for answers in their life and don't know how they might find it, that this could potentially be something that is the most positive thing that's ever happened to you. It was for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that is for sure. And that was beautifully laid out. So thank you for that. And I've got to say that whenever, while I was in my shit and I would have my experiences with either acid or shrooms, uh, the few days afterwards, up to, I think it was about maybe a week and a half tops, that after ingesting those and having the experience, my body was like, hey, I don't want to touch
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. Like that stuff is bad. And as it would start to fade away, the urge to drink would come back. And I was like, damn, I don't really want to sit here and do psychedelics all the time, because I had a high school teacher who did that at Woodstock and he wasn't necessarily all the way there. So don't want to follow that
Yeah.
road. But it didn't really, I never really connected the dots in the middle of it, you know, that there was something there. There was something so much more there. There was so much potential, and I just pissed it away quite literally, because I was just trying to run away from everything. I wasn't ready to accept that
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. I wasn't ready to sit there and say that a lot of these bad things that happened were because of me, were my fault. And I think that you highlighted it very well at the beginning of the episode whenever you said that life is suffering, and so you just kind of choose it now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, um, with that being said, we've already asked if you're going to be on the show again, and you said yes. But I've got one question before we call it, because we're close to the end of this episode. So, John, the name of this podcast is Retrieving Sanity, and we explore how all facets of living life impact mental health. Looking at the incredible motley adventures of your life, what does retrieving sanity personally mean to you today, and what's one practice or perspective you believe is crucial for anyone on that journey?
Yeah, man. You know, so I feel like insanity comes a lot from not understanding what matters to you and doing things that are out of alignment with how you really know that you should be living life. You know, like anxiety, I've found, you know, since my experience with psilocybin, that it peaks at the times when I feel out of alignment with what I'm doing versus what I know I should be doing, right? And so sanity for me comes back to, what do I know that I want for myself? What do I know that I should be doing and going towards that? And so, you know, when, you know, just going back to the beginning of the conversation, right? I'm operating on 4 hours of sleep right now. And that's totally fine, because I know what I want for myself. And it doesn't matter that, you know, I'm here doing a podcast until 8:30 at night and I have to wake up at 4 in the morning to go out for a run, right? Because what I'm doing right now matters so much to me, to give my story to other people, to share this insane level of positivity and transformation and hope and inspiration for people who may be looking for a little fragment of that in their own life. And if I can do something as, you know, as little as give myself a short night of sleep to go and work for those things that really matter to me, that is insane sanity right there. And I grasp it every single time that I make a hard decision to get up out of bed when I know that I want to just sit there and sleep for another hour.
Oh man, that was very well put. And I mean, I think you just nailed it. I mean, that is a damn good reason to get out of bed in the morning. You know, that is a damn good reason to say that life is different and that we can actually choose how we want our life to be.
Your mindset is your reality. That's the title of the book.
So, yeah, that's right. I forgot to ask, where can people find your book again, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon. It's on print, softcover, hardback, Kindle, and will soon be available on audiobook. I'm just waiting for the approval from Amazon Audio, so it'll soon be available up there. That was a year plus in process of taking that from a written book to audiobook, and a lot of hard work, and recording it through all the way through 4 or 5 times before I finally got it to the point where I feel proud of it. And so I'm just really, really, really proud of the work that I've put in, not only on writing the book, but I'm bringing that audiobook to life. And I'm, just so grateful that I'm going to be able to share it with people on a broader spectrum.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. And you can also now put on your resume that you are a voice actor and for yourself.
There we go. Well, another check on the box, baby. Other on the book though, Instagram, Johnny B, Facebook, John Borden. You can look for me. There's a picture of me in a black shirt with a weight belt on, looking all fierce and shit. And my website, getpsychedfitness.com, TikTok, Johnny B Fit.
Sweet. I'm excited to have you back on the show because I would love to speak even more about, what was it? Your perspective is your reality?
Your mindset is your reality.
Your mindset is your reality.
It was a text that I sent to my mother after that realization that nothing in my life had changed, but everything had changed.
There you go. I think that's definitely a good way to sum it all up and have everyone actually understand what you're talking about.
Trying, man.
Yeah. But with that, everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, if you need help with anything, if you've got a life crisis, just call 988. There will be someone there to take that call for you. But you've got to try to live your life and love yourself a little bit. Love others if you can, but you've got to love yourself first. And we will see you in next week's episode. Much love.